I'd like to come closer. My name is Juretha Fernandes, and I am from region number 7. I live in the lower Mazaruni. And if I'm to follow the family tree of my family, I would tell you that we have relatives up in the Borbis River, relatives in the Pomeroon River. That families came down to region 7. So there's a lot of Fernandes in region 7, and we're all related. so for the Fernandes here, if we go through that family tree, we will see how we're related. And we came from very strong family background. I can tell you, my grandmother in the Pomeroon River, she was Mabel Sandy. She was a Tushaw at Wakapow for many, many years, and she was so exceptional in her representation for Indigenous people that they named the schools there after her. So in Wakapow, there's a Mabel Sandy Nursery School and a Mabel Sandy Primary School. So that is the line that we came from. My father is in Lower Mazaruni. He was a Tushaw of Kaikan Village because that's where he grew up. We have family right through Karo Village, and the entire Lower Mazaruni you'll find Fernandes, and we're all related. So there's a quick family history there of where I came from. I come from a strong Adventist family background. My grandmother, yes. Yeah, my grandmother, Miss Collinette, she joined the Adventist church when she was in her early 20s. She used to tell us stories that she used to go out there and party, and so in her teens, when she started to have her children, she wanted a better life for her children. She couldn't read. Back then when she had her first 2 children, she couldn't read. And she joined the Adventist church in her early 20s, and she learned to read using the Bible, believe it or not. Yes. So I went up, part find the master guide. I have the honors just like anybody else there. Dog honor, cat honor, swimming, everything. So pardon me? I was at Congress at the West Coast when it was there. You know, when we had it on the ground, the track and field there. Well, I wasn't good at track and field, give me an honors. In November right here? Yeah. Well, I'll make this commitment, take it down, that I'll be back in November here for Congress. Yes. So I believe, and I always tell people that when it comes to representation, I was in the private sector. I was dealing with, I managed a tech company. We dealt with cable, satellite phones, and those things. I believe that communication is something that is necessary for every single area, and we are pushing strong. I traveled to various Indigenous communities in Guyana, and I saw there's a lot of struggle in Indigenous communities. A lot of resources are not coming to our communities, and because of that, I decided to join politics. I'm not a natural politician. I just decided to go into politics to be able to have that opportunity to represent Indigenous people, because I believe my voice is strong. So I went into Parliament in 2020. So I served in Parliament with the APNU, and why I chose the APNU is because when I looked at every other political party, the APNU is the only political party for me that had a history of representation for Indigenous people and Indigenous communities. If you travel through the length and breadth of this country, the only major agriculture project came under the APNU. If you look at representation, the first Indigenous Member of Parliament came from the APNU. The first Indigenous Minister came from the APNU. The first Indigenous Diplomat came from the APNU. So the APNU has been doing tremendous things when it comes to empowerment of Indigenous people. And today I stand as the first ever in the history of Guyana Indigenous Prime Ministerial Candidate under the APNU. So that's why I chose to be with the APNU, because I wanted to be a part of a movement that was empowering to my people, and I wanted to be a part of a group of people that wants to put policies in place that's going to benefit Indigenous communities, because that's the reason why I'm in politics in the first place. I want to tell you that when I traveled to the various communities growing up as a child, we all struggled similarly. I went to primary school. Many days I didn't go to school because I didn't have the resource to go to school. But at the end of the day, I went home with my mother, and you do your homework late into the night. You use a lamp, and you study hard. When I wrote Common Entrance, as we call it before, I wrote Common Entrance right there in Bartica School. I got taught for the region back then. But then I studied a little bit harder, and when I wrote CXE, I topped the region at that stage. All right? So we go up against the best in the region, and we do exceptionally well as Indigenous people. But I didn't stop there. I went on and I did a degree in economics because I wanted to learn what exactly is it that needs to be done for Indigenous communities to become economically empowered so that our people do not have to suffer anymore. So I went to University of Guyana and I did a degree in economics, in which I completed successfully also. And in 2019, because I decided to come into this political life to make policies, I didn't want to just come and say that I'm going to go and we're going to make policies. I wanted to do it the right way. I want to make sure that when I'm making policies, I do it correctly. So I went back to the University of Guyana and I did a master's in public administration. So I know exactly how to create the policies that we need to have to uplift our communities. So that's a brief as to who I am. Now, we're here on the campaign trail. The first thing I want to say is that this is my first time ever running for public office. And I can tell you that how I present myself, my style of argument, I'm not very subtle in what I do. I'm very bold in how I express myself. Anyone that saw me debate in Parliament would know that I go and I debate very boldly and proud. Because I want to show Indigenous young people that you are just as good as anybody else in this country when it comes to representation. When I went to Parliament in 2020, you know what I debated in Parliament? I debated finance because as the APNU representative, I was the first ever Indigenous person to ever be given the portfolio of finance at a national level. So these are things that we need to be proud of as a people. So we are here, and I want to get straight into the policies. Now, a major difference in the way in which we do our meetings, our presentations, is that we do not just come and give you what we want. We make sure that we leave time so you can ask all the questions that you have to ask. Because I do not like, when I was not in politics, I never liked politicians coming, giving a presentation, and then gone. Because it didn't give an opportunity for persons to ask questions, and I want to change that. So every meeting that I have, I make my presentation and then I take questions, either based on what I present or any other question everyone will feel free to answer. But I want to get into the presentation, and I want to start by saying there's a major difference in the way in which the APNU look at Indigenous matters. And that difference is that we believe that Indigenous leaders must have the greatest say in Indigenous matters. We want to make sure that the Tushau, the Deputy Tushau, and the entire council is empowered so that they can better represent the villages that elected them to represent them. And we want to take away the political interference from in those bodies. At no point in time should a Tushau or any member of the council feel that they're obligated to any political party. And that's the first thing I want to say, that our policy, our first policy when it comes to Indigenous communities, that we're going to be removing any political interference from Indigenous representation. And that's a commitment that we make. That is something I feel very strongly about. Now, when it comes to development of Indigenous communities, we are going to make sure that we continue a major empowerment for Indigenous communities, and that's communication. I was a part of the last administration, the last year, I went in the last year when I realized that I wanted to have a voice there. I stepped out of the private sector life when I went in, and I was able to serve at the office of the Prime Minister. You know, one of the things that I took great pride in is going to various communities. We were putting up radio stations, putting in ICT hubs, because we wanted Indigenous communities to have access to communications. I want to tell you that landing on the ground here, I could not believe, because I thought they did it already. I could not believe that there wasn't access to a telephone service here as yet. And I'm going to tell you this, Kaikan, it is not hard to do. It is easy to do. And all government has to do is give right incentives for the companies to come in and give those service. So the first thing I want, and I want my assistant, Onyx is my assistant, so he's taking notes as I speak. The first thing I'm going to say is that when it comes to policy, you can bet your last dollar that I will make sure that you have access to phone service here with urgency. Everyone will be able to get that. That's a commitment. It's easy to be done, but more importantly, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be empowering the community and the people living here. Now, the APNU, if you've been following any part of our campaign, I know it's difficult because you don't have the easy access to the internet and so. But we are saying that our campaign is a people-centered development campaign, because we want to make sure that every policy that we have, every decision that we make, it comes with the idea that we're putting people first. We're living in a country right now that we have trillions of dollars. We have trillions of dollars to spend on the people. But what we're having right now is those monies being directed into the pockets of a few people. A few wealthy people are getting all the resources, and the ordinary Guyanese throughout this country is not getting those resources. So we're going to redesign how those monies are spent. And we're going to make sure that we will be putting the money into your pocket, because you deserve that. And the first thing we're going to do, when it comes to, when it comes to the carbon credits, how much carbon credits is given here? $18 million. Now, we have, if you look around, you're going to see a lot of green, a lot of forest. We have a government in place right now that came to the hinterland and saw that there's a lot of forests. So they went ahead and they started collecting monies for the forest. It's called carbon credits. It's basically saying that because Indigenous people, because our ancestors protected the forest, preserved the forest for generations, and it's intact right now, that we have a forest that is valuable. Now, the monies that are being collected from that, only 15% of the money is coming back to Indigenous communities. Only 15% is being spent throughout the country in Indigenous communities. I am saying, and I have made a public statement, I've been speaking about it for the last months, that we need to be making sure that the monies from carbon credit comes to the Indigenous people. So the first thing I'm saying is that we are going to be given at least 50%, that's the starting point. At least 50% of the money coming back to the people. When we talk about giving back the money to the people, I know usually the money, the $18 million, would go to the Tushao and Tushao Council. I am saying we're raising it to 50%, and that 50%, we're going to make sure that we give the money directly to you. Each and every one of you will be receiving money from the carbon credit. That's where the 50% will be coming. Yes. So that is one of the things. And I know that Tushar may be saying, well, if you give the money to the people, then what's the council going to have? We're going to be giving the council a separate budget. We're living in a country in which we have this budget alone. And I want people to understand, this is why I handled finance. 5 years in Parliament, I handled finance. I never made a mistake with a number. I don't make mistake with numbers. When we went into office and when we were handling budgets before 2015 to 2020, our largest budget was $300 billion, and that was a 2019 budget. That's the largest budget we had. 2019, $300 billion. Today, under the PPP administration, this budget, the 2025 budget, is $1.382 trillion. You see the difference? So for this year's budget is $1,082 billion more than our budget that we had, than our largest budget that we had. So a lot of times people come and ask you to try to compare and contrast what is being done now to what is being done before, and I can't compare it. Because when we were in office, we had prices down. Prices for food stuff was lower. When we were in office, education pass rate was higher. When we were in office, persons were doing better when we had less money to spend than what is being done right about now. But I tell you this, when it comes to using that money, that $1 trillion budget, it's not coming into indigenous communities, because what the PPP government has done is that they have decided that only the money that is being taken from carbon credit, and not even half, 15% of the money from carbon credit is the only money they give to the Tushaus and the Tushau councils so that they can manage the community. I say it is disrespectful, and I believe it was done. I said it's disrespectful, and I believe it was done because a lot of times when you go to the National Assembly, you see we have had indigenous representation before in Parliament. We have persons from the PPP, indigenous leaders in the PPP. And I can tell you, when you go to Parliament, persons, and these things we have to talk about it, the only time the indigenous leaders are allowed to speak in Parliament is during budget presentation. They give them a speech to read. A prepared speech they give them to read. When I go to Parliament and I give a presentation, I could handle any one of them. Nobody's preparing my speech. I go and speak from my heart, because that's the representation that we need to be given when it comes to indigenous representation in Guyana. Now, the $1 trillion budget, we are going to be budgeting for the Tushau and the Tushau Council. So I'm going to say right now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to raise the amount of money the Tushau and the council is getting. Because you would know how hard the Tushau works in your community. You could go to the Tushau any time of the day, any time of the night. The Tushau don't have working hours. Round the clock, they have to be available. The first thing we're doing is going to raise the Tushau is $40,000 a month. That the Tushau is getting, the disrespectful amount. Let me tell you, the Tushaus are our leaders. We elect them. They are the greatest representation in our communities. They need to be treated with respect. The first thing we're going to do is raise the Tushau money from $40,000 to $200,000 plus benefits. And we're not raising the Tushau money alone. We're going to raise the entire council money. The deputy Tushau and all the councillors' money will be increased. We've got to bring it. We've got to bring Tushaus and Tushau councils up to that level of everybody else. If you go online, you're going to see the PP giving out monies. Giving out money to some contractors, their friends who can't build nothing. Hundreds of millions of dollars. But I'll say this to you today. When we go into office, we are going to be budgeting for the Tushau Council. So whatever project is being done in the community, the money will be going to the Tushau Council. So we will be moving it from $18 million into hundreds of millions of dollars coming into the Tushau and the Tushau Council. That is so simple to do, and I can tell you, one of the difficulties you have in indigenous communities is that we have the RDC, and the entire region have to depend on the RDC and the engineers from the RDC and how the money is approved from that level. So there's a big gap. Sometimes you're waiting forever for something that could be done with this, like this, if you had the money here. So we're going to be making sure that you have the money right here. You shouldn't have to have a security company from in Georgetown working here. Those things are crazy. We're going to make sure that you have the money here so you can employ people from right here. We want to make sure that you are empowered as a people. And this is why I started off by saying I studied this. I made sure that I not just only want to do it, I made sure that I studied it so I know exactly what needs to be done for people to be empowered. You know, when I go to communities throughout the country, right about now, persons are, the people have persons going around in various parts of Guyana asking people to not come to my meetings. Because when you come to my meeting, I speak from my heart. I don't have to speak from a paper. I speak from my heart, because these things are things I understand deeply. It's things that affected me, things that are affecting my family, my brothers and sisters in indigenous communities throughout Guyana. So when I come to these communities, I speak with the knowledge and understanding of what is needed, and I can present policies very clearly, and they cannot. And I want you to understand the difference. You know, we have issues when it comes to land management. And I went to communities because land management is huge. That is something we have been struggling with for quite some time as indigenous people. And I went to communities and I broke it down to them, because there's a lot of politics involved why we have not gotten to where we need to be when it comes to our land rights. And I want to tell you today, a lot of times when you go to communities, you would see one to show in a village saying, this is my boundary, and another to show saying, no, you taking part of my land, and that's not the boundary. And it has been used as a tool to not move forward the process. I told my colleagues, I told the Tushaus, I went deep south Rupununi, north Rupununi, Upper Mazaruni, every area that I touch. And I tell them one thing: we have got to unite our voices as indigenous people. And the first thing we need to do when it comes to land, right, is Tushauts need to come together and agree that these are the boundaries that we're respecting, and let us go forward and say this is it. So there's going to be no excuse when we move forward as a government to giving indigenous people the land rights that you've been fighting for so many years. That's just one of it. When it comes to land rights, I can tell you this. I'm an economist. I've been trained, studied as an economist. You know, Barjag, do you like to go and play? He's the brightest person in Guyana. I tell you this. He has a degree in economics, and so do I. I have a master's in public administration. He does not. Right? But when it comes to land rights, I want you to hear me on this. We are not just going to be giving land rights to indigenous communities, but we are going to empower you so that you could develop the lands that you will have as your own. I went to Region 1, and I want to use this as an example for you. I went to Region 1. I was going to a community called Yarkita, going to the border, and I'm going to get to the border issue in a minute. I went to a community called Yarkit, and on my way there I saw fields upon fields of palm trees, hundreds of palm trees, if not thousands of palm trees. And I asked, it was all grown up with bushes, and I asked, what was that? Why is it like that? I know what I was told. I was told that under the PNC, many years ago, that was an economic project that was done there in an indigenous community. You know why? Because the PNC has always cared to empower indigenous people. That was the heart of Palm Project, in which indigenous communities were empowered to make sure that they had an economic activity to bring money into the communities. So that when we were bringing money into the communities, we could have sustained ourselves, and they were making palm oil from the heart of Palm Project. I'm telling you this today. We are going to make sure that you not only get land rights, but I'm going to make sure that when you have the land rights, you have the economic ability to develop the land so that you are earning right here in your communities. How am I going to do that? So how am I going to do that? I am going to be doing that through a development bank. Let me tell you what a development bank is. A development bank, and I hope no other political party didn't come and talk about the development bank. You know why? Because we spoke about the development bank at our press conferences about 3 months ago. When they heard that persons were gravitating to it, everybody else decided to start talking about it. But they do not understand how to structure it so that the people benefit. When the PPP administration think about banking and all of those things, they structure it in such a way that only their friends can get the loans. We're talking about making sure that you, the people, the ordinary Guyanese, that you get these monies. A development bank, what it does, it finances you to create businesses, small businesses, medium scale businesses at a zero interest. So we're going to make sure that we bring the money to you and you have no interest attached to it when it comes to payback period, because we want you to be able to develop agriculture. We want to make sure that you have access. You know, the biggest problem with agriculture in indigenous communities when it comes to transportation, to getting your produce out. Sometimes a lot of times you can farm a lot, but when you have the produce now, everybody in your community farming similar things. So they can't buy from you because they're planting the same thing also. So what we're going to be doing is that we are going to be taking charge of that to make sure that we subsidize, reduce the cost of jobs so you can be able to ship those produce out and be a part of this grand food security that we talk about in Guyana. We're going to make sure that no person planting in the hinterland and indigenous communities have produce that you can't find market for, because we will be finding the market for you. We want money to come in your pockets. And this is the economics of it all. I tell you, this is what I studied. I know it like the back of my hands. We want to make sure that you have those money, so we're going to be putting millions of dollars in every community so that everybody can get that. Now, not everybody wants to go and do farming. Some persons want to go study. The people that want to go and study, what are we going to be doing for you? We're going to make sure that every person that wants to go and study after secondary school, you're given a stipend of $50,000 every month to assist you while you study. That's the first thing we're going to be doing for persons there. In addition to that, persons that have to leave your home, these are our ancestral homes. Persons that have to leave your homes to go down to the coastline or down to the city, Georgetown. We're going to make sure that once you have to leave here and you're paying a rent down in Georgetown, that you will be given rental assistance. We will be paying rent for you also. These are things that I understand the difficulty with, because I can tell you, for me to go to the University of Guyana, that's why I say I can speak from my heart, because these things affected me personally. For me to go to the University of Guyana, I had to move about 12 different times in the time I was going to University of Guyana, because you're renting a place here, there are challenges there. You're renting a place somewhere else, there's challenges there. And we have no family in Georgetown because we are indigenous people. Our family is at home in the hinterland. So, and it was difficult. I worked probably about 8 different jobs as I went to University of Guyana, because not everybody wants to employ you when you're studying. So those are the difficulties we face. Our family face those difficulties. So I understand the challenge. So that's why we came up with this policy, because I know it will help greatly. So we're helping to pay your rent, and on top of that, we're giving you $50,000 a month for you to be able to study at ease. We care, and when we say people-centered policies, these are the things we're referring to. We've created these things to help. I want to say that we have policies that's going to benefit from the smallest child right up. When it comes to children, right now children are you're just getting $55,000, right? $50,000 for the grant, $5,000 for school uniform. I can tell you this. In a country that has over $1 trillion in a budget for 1 year, we can do better than that. So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be given from birth, your child from birth, not when you're in school, from birth right through secondary school, we're going to be giving every single child $120,000 every month. So you know who that will be catering for? We are the only political party that will be catering for children that's 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, children that are not yet in school. We want to make sure that you are catered for as well. And I can tell you this, you know, a lot of times person would come and ask, they would say, oh, their policies are unrealistic. I can tell you this, when we were in opposition, we went to the National Assembly and we asked for every person to be given $100,000 cash grant. Barjagdio went out there and he said, that's unrealistic, the one we just share out the oil money. And when his own people start going to him and say, people need this money, then he suddenly realized it was realistic. And then they went and they gave the 100,000. After we force them, we fight them fit, and then they go out there and give persons it. So we have been representing, and we know what can be done and what cannot be done. When it comes to having experts on the team, I want to tell you this. Nobody can tell you that we are not prepared. We've been preparing for this for many years. When it comes to having experts on a team to deal with finance and all of those things, the only party that has experts that can put policy in place is us. Let me tell you what the PPP have experts in. They have experts in corruption. They have experts in draining the resources into their own pockets. Right? They have experts in cocaine smuggling. Right? That's the experts that they have. We don't have those experts. We have experts in finance, that when we were in government, we kept the prices of food stuff low. We have experts to make sure that children are educated. We had the highest pass rate ever. Those are the experts that we have. And those are the experts that I'm proud to represent. As we talk about experts, we're close to the board, and I want to say this. I want to tell you this. It is unbelievable that you do not have communication here via cell phone, given how close you are to the border. It's unbelievable. You've been left almost invisible to the country. When it comes to border issues, there is no political party, and you mark my word. I challenge people to go and check that for themselves. There is no political party in Guyana that has experts when it comes to keeping the peace and leading with diplomacy so that we don't accelerate any issue with the border. And it's a proof. When the people went into office, they are so oblivious. They do not understand the border issues to the point that they had to borrow from our experts to help them with those things. Persons like Carl Greenidge, they had to employ him back because they have nobody that understands the border issues. When it comes to communities that are facing those issues at the border, I say to you, the only political party that has any competence is the APNU when it comes to making sure that you are safe, you are protected, and that we do not have accelerated issues when it comes to the border. This is an important matter. I can tell you my colleague, Mr. Duncan, where he is. He's somewhere. He's doing the tech stuff as I speak. When we had the matter, when there was acceleration of the issue with our border, you know where the president and all of them were? They were nicely, comfortably seated in Georgetown. Right? They slept in Kaikan, right? That's what they did? Exactly. My colleague, Mr. Duncan, went and he traversed the border from one end of Guyana to the next. Because that's what you do. You go and you check on your people in the country. That's what a caring administration does. And that's why I said they are unmatched to the representation that we have within the APNU. We will make sure we are the first one in the line, standing to make sure that you are protected as a people. We have to do this. Nobody else is going to do this for you. All right? Say that again?
Support, yeah.
Yes. Now, we're going to make sure, like I want to go back to the policies again. I want to make sure the persons understand when it comes to transportation for your children to get to school, we're going to be providing that. But there's a bigger issue when it comes to indigenous communities. And again, this policy was something that came into being because of my own experiences. As I went to school, my brother had to stay in the dorms, my cousins had to stay in the dorms, and one of the things that I can tell you is that we do not like dorms. Indigenous children, we do not like dorms, and as an indigenous parents, we don't like to have to pack our children up at 11 years old and send them away from us. So what we're going to be doing is that we are going to be bringing our children home. We're going to make sure that each indigenous communities have the facilities, have the schools, that your child will be able to go to school in the morning and come home in the afternoon. I feel very passionately about that one because I understand how I understand how difficult it is, and I can tell you this. If we are to have a fair assessment, we would see that there's only a few of our children that go to the dorms that do well in school. A few of them, not because they're not smart, not because they're bad children. When they go to the dorms, they're lacking a lot of things. They're lacking the love from their parents. They're lacking the supervision from their family, somebody to say, let me see your homework, let me help you. When they're not feeling well, there's nobody to give them that attention and that comfort. So our children don't do well, and we have got to recognize that. And that's why I say a major policy that I will undertake is to bring your children home to you so that they will go to sleep in their own beds in your home. Now, how is that going to be possible for them to get a good education? I tell you this. We have a policy, we've always had the policy, that there should not be 5 top schools in this country. We should have top schools in all parts of this country. All schools should have the same resources, and all schools should be teaching the same things so that all our children would have equal opportunity to do great in this life. Because the same way I could have done a bachelor's and a master's degree, the same way every one of your children should have the opportunity to do those things, because we have the same brain. We're the same type of people. They just need to be given the support, and that is what we'll be doing. We'll be given the support to your children also, to make sure that they will do well in life. I want to announce another thing here. I'm going as fast as I can because there's so many policies. For the first time ever in the history of Guyana, we're going to be having an Indigenous Technical Institute. We will have an Indigenous Technical Institute under the APNU administration. So what is that going to be doing? That is going to make sure that we are training persons, Indigenous people, in the different skills and trade that you want to be trained in, things that your community will benefit from. We will make sure that when you're being trained, all of you will be given the $50,000 every single month also. So your education will be free, plus you'll be getting money to aid you with basic needs as you go along. And we will be training thousands of Indigenous people throughout Guyana through that institute so that you will be empowered to come back home to give the benefit to your community. What I want is that we should not have to depend on persons coming from the coastline to do basic things in our communities. We should have our own engineers. We should have our own electricians, our own plumbers. We should be trained and upskilled in that level so that we take charge of our own destiny and the development of our community. So we're going to be doing that. I know the elderly people in the room. I want to say this. The only reason I can stand here today, the only reason that I can be with you is because of all the work that was put in by my parents and my grandparents and my generation. Because of the foundation that they built for me, through all the hard work that they have done, and Indigenous people, we work very, very hard. We're some of the hardest working people in this country, and we get the least at the end of our hard work. I want to acknowledge all the elderly people here today, and I want to say that we appreciate everything that you've done, because it was because of you that our young people are standing here. It's because of you that we have the opportunity today to speak out, because you have done your part in molding us, and we appreciate you. So I just want to acknowledge all the elderly people here today and say thank you for what you've done. Now, pension. Pension is something that is at $41,000 a month. $41,000 a month is pension. I think that is the poorest amount of money that you can talk about giving anybody. $41,000 a month can't do anything for anybody. All right? So, an easy policy, and I said this is an easy one because we have the money to do it. An easy policy that we're going to be putting in place is to make sure that we give pensioners $100,000 every month. That is a commitment that will be done right away. And we will make sure that you get that money every single month. I know there's a challenge. And I want to ask this question because I'm not sure if it's done here. Did the pensioners here receive money for the rest of the year?
Not yet. First quarter.
So 4 times a year pensioners get money here? Twice. Oh, wow.
Every 6 months.
Well, let me tell you this. When we talk about giving pension, I can tell you this. Indigenous communities, you will be getting your money every single month, the same time with the rest of this country. We will make sure that you do not have to wait for your money. You can't pause your expenses for 6 months. Every day you got to eat. Every month you got to eat. You will get your money every single month. This is a commitment. This can be done easily. There's nothing stopping you from getting it. CSOs will be getting your money every single month. But not just that, we'll be giving CSOs an increase also. And I say this to you today, right? The first thing that we said is that, and I just want to break it down how we look at policies. The first thing that we said is that we're going to be raising all of the persons in the CSO program and all the 10 days worker. We said we're going to raise them up to $50,000. But wait for this. Then we decided, our economists, as a team of 40 of us, 40 people come together and we got to trash these things out in the room. Because we got to decide how we're going to make sure that persons get this money, how is it sustainable, that the country will be able to move forward and advance whilst we're making these commitments. And we were able to recognize that we have enough monies that we can pay you $100,000 every month. So we're going to be doing something differently also. We said that, and you know why we said that? Because we are raising the minimum wage to $200,000. So the persons that are working part-time, you cannot be left behind when the minimum wage is going to be raised to $200,000 a month. So anyone working for minimum wage, you will be given $200,000 at minimum every month. Now, we have any public servants in the house? Public servants. I want to get an idea of how much you receive as a public servant. Just an average. Anybody?
106.
121.10.
Some get 107 according to their subject, their grades.
106? Wow.
That's my basic salary.
Is there anybody in here that is getting more than that?
No.
Yes, teacher.
Wow.
Teacher.
Well, let me tell you, for anybody that is making $106,000, I just told you, your money for the month will be going out to $200,000 because the minimum wage will be raised to $200,000. But more importantly, you know what's the most important part? Public servants, you will know that when you went into this year, you heard about an 8% increase. You remember that?
Yes, that never happened.
Let me tell you this. The money that the PP administration gives, sometimes it's 7%, sometimes it's 8%. But you know what's the hurtful part? They always tax the money.
Right.
You give a little bit and then you take back some of it and put it in taxes. It's absolutely crazy. When we were in office, you would remember that no increase was taxed ever. No increase was taxed, but we're doing something even better this time, because when you have more money, people-centered development means that we give back the money to you, the people. So what we are going to be doing is every person earning less than $400,000 will be paying no income tax in this country. None of your money will be taxed. All right? She said she hopes so. I'm telling you, that is a fact. We will not be taxing your money. But you know, a lot of persons here, you have colleagues and you have family on the coastline and so forth, right? Persons that apply for a house lot long. And when the house lot come, whatever, they have to pay a lot of money for it, right? Every person that is making less than $400,000 a month, this is a majority Guyana, let me tell you. Every person that's making less than $400,000 a month will be getting a free house lot under the APNU. But you know what else? It's not, it doesn't end there. Now economics will tell you, and I could talk because this is my field. If you want to keep your economy moving, you have to have economic activities. People have to be working to make sure that your economy is boosted. Yeah. How do we do that to make sure that you benefit while the economy is boosting? Two things that's going to be directly beneficial to the hinterland. We're going to be building major highways into hinterland areas. We're going to be make sure that you have the ability to get contracts because we want you to be able to get the money that we're going to be investing in your communities. That's the first one. The second thing is that we are going to be building thousands of homes in Guyana. And I can say this to the hinterland. When we build thousands of homes in Guyana, the hinterland will not be left behind, and indigenous communities will have equal opportunities to have thousands of homes built in the hinterland that you could benefit from. But how is that going to benefit you more? You are going to be the one that will be getting the contracts to build the homes yourselves. So we will be putting persons to work. I have been preparing for these things practically my entire adult life, studying how we can do things to benefit indigenous people in indigenous communities. And we have strong policies that nobody can shake. You know, I asked my counterpart, Mark Phillips, in the PPP, I challenged him to debate me on policies. He never responded. Never responded. I challenge any one of them to debate me on policies. And when it comes to the carbon credit, their minister responsible for that is Vikram Bharat. It comes under his portfolio. Vikram Bharat stood up in Parliament and he said that we're going to be giving 15% to the indigenous people. And I stood up and I said, who determined that 15%? And he couldn't answer me. He said that they're putting together a board to represent carbon credits and what the money will be used for, and they're going to put one indigenous person on the board. And I stood up and said that is disrespectful to indigenous people. You want to spend the money that you're collecting from forests that our ancestors preserved, and then you want yourself and your friends must spend 85% of the money? Absolute nonsense. I questioned him in Parliament. He could not respond. A big issue when it comes to his portfolio and how it affects indigenous communities when it comes to mining. When it comes to mining, I tell you this. We're living in a country where we have small miners. We're living in a country where you see medium and large scale miners. And I could say Region 7 has been a region that a lot of people, even other political representatives, you know, the Blue Party, for example, the Blue Party, when they come to your community, one of the things that you should be asking them is, how much money did you benefit from gold mining in Region 7 alone? Ask the leadership that question, and how was that money spent? Did you go through an indigenous community and talk to the Tushaus to get permission? Those are serious questions. I say this to you today. As I travel the hinterland, one of the things I saw is that we have complete disrespect for indigenous lands when it comes to mining. That has got to stop. We have got to put policies in place that benefit small miners, but respects indigenous lands also. Those things are not hard to do. I want to say to my colleagues, indigenous people that want to be involved in mining yourself, we will make sure that you can do it in such a way that you are protected, your health is protected. We will make sure that it is done in such a way that you have proper equipment so that the land that we have, the land that our foreparents preserved for us, will be of benefit to us, with not having to depend on persons coming in from the outside because we don't have the money to get the equipment to develop these lands ourselves. We can do whatever we want. That's what I'm saying. My message is clear. Whatever an indigenous community wants to develop, be it mining, be it agriculture, whatever it is, we are going to be giving you the empowerment, and we're going to put the money in your pocket so that you have the equipment. We're going to give you the training so that you decide on your path forward. This is our commitment to you. I know I have like 100 different other things that I want to say. So hopefully some of them come out when it comes to the question, because the last thing I want is for me alone to be speaking without persons being able to ask questions. No good meeting is had if you're not able to answer questions from the people. So I just want to pause for a moment. I can tell you I didn't cover half of what we're going to be doing with Indigenous affairs, but important to note, the last thing I want to say is that when we take office, after the 1st of September, it will be the first time ever in the history of Guyana that the office of the Prime Minister will have responsibility for Indigenous affairs in Guyana. And I will be responsible for everything that I'm talking about. Yes. So my colleague just reminded me, that's why he's a good assistant. He just reminded me that a major thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to be bringing back the Guyana Airways. So we're going to be bringing down the cost of travel. Yes. You see what I told you? When I forget important things sometimes. It's so many things. We're going to bring back the Guyana Airways. We're going to be subs. And I can tell you that is going to take some time. So right now what we're looking at is to subsidize the cost of travel for persons living in Indigenous communities, because when you go online and you see that Harbor Bridge, you don't have to pay a toll no more. You don't have to pay a toll no more on the Borbies Bridge. That doesn't affect you. That doesn't benefit you. So what we have to do is make sure that you benefit also from the resources of this country. So we're going to be looking at subsidizing the cost of travel for people living here. So that's a major one, and I want to hand it over to questions, and I want to first acknowledge the team, the Tushao, the Tushao Council. I can tell you this, as I travel Guyana, sometimes I reach some communities in which we have a little bit of difficulty, Tushau's not know whether or not they should accept us into the community or not. But at the end of our meeting, it always ends on a positive light, because there's one thing if somebody come and tell you something negative about my team. But when my team come and we make our presentation and you see for yourself what we're representing, then everybody is on board. And I want to tell you that your Tushau is exceptional in her representation for Kaikan. Exceptional. I can tell you one thing. The first time I met her was at Ramadan, when she went down there with her team, and she came in late with her team, but she's an exceptional leader. And although Kaikan was the last team coming in, Kaikan left winning the male tournament. Kaikan left winning that, and that is exceptional. I want to congratulate you right now for that. Sports, I can't stop. This is how it goes. There's so many things. Sports. The hinterland, Indigenous communities, we have produced some of the best athletes in Guyana, particularly when it comes to football, because that is something that we have mastered over time. One of our policies that we have is that we're going to be funding all sports teams throughout the hinterland. That is a commitment, and we will be paying all athletes that reach the national. You will get a salary. You don't have to wonder what your work is. Your work will be to be an athlete and to excel in that craft. So that's what I want to say. And I want to hand it. All right. So I want to hand it back over to the Tushos for us to assist me with just taking some questions and ask the hard questions. I don't mind. We got to be prepared to answer difficult questions if you want to be leaders in this country. All right, so ask the hard questions.